So, Mighty Oak is a film about rock and roll from Sean McNamara, and it's a very this is such a strange film to talk about to even like describe the premise. It sounds like a bad TV movie. So the premise is that there's this band called Army of Love, and it follows them first in like the very early 2000s, you know, when and they'll let you know it's the early 2000s because they show you how the iPods are just starting to take off. It's like, man, one day these iPods, man, they'll be able to hold so much music and they'll do everything for us. Like, I get it because it's in the past. So anyway, Army of Love. It's basically like your standard, like, you know, kind of semi-punk type of rock group. And they have a very talented guitarist and singer by the name of Vaughn, who's played by Levi Dillon. And basically they have big dreams. They say like, oh, yeah, you know, Army of Love, they're going to go on to big things. But then they get into a car crash, and Vaughn doesn't survive the car crash. He ends up dead. So years later, the band's broken up. You know, they've all gone on to different jobs, and basically they're not too happy with the way that their lives have turned out. But then, into their life strolls a 10-year-old by the name of Oak, and he's played by Thomas Reagan. And they discover that Oak really has a natural talent for guitar. And they think like, well, you know, some of the band members think, oh, well, you know, how about we play with this kid? Maybe something cool will happen. You know, we could go on to a show. We could show him off. You know, like, you know, it might be a good boost for this kid, especially since this kid has the unfortunate life of having a single mom who's addicted to drugs and steals and sells his stuff. And it's kind of hard to feel with her, especially since they show her as someone who's in desperate need of help and with someone you gotta, you know, pity. So basically, like, Oak is trying to, you know, make his life a little better, and maybe this band can help him out. Could be an interesting story of redemption, but here's the problem with that premise. The troubling thing is that Vaughn's sister, Gina, she believes that Oak, and this isn't like some sort of like a mild thing in the back of her brain. She believes that Oak is the reincarnation of Vaughn, because Oak was apparently associated with the car crash, and he was born around the same time that Vaughn died. And he apparently has a similar way that he plays the guitar. He has a similar drawing style. So she literally believes that Oak is the reincarnation of her brother. And yeah, it's kind of hard to accept that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of hard to accept in this film. Like, you know, especially the way this film is written, the dialogue is so hollow here. All the characters say exactly what they mean. There's very little nuance to it. They pretty much are locked within the characters that they're meant to be. Like, one's the sassy girl, one's the kind of like the partying the partying drunk of the group who's always eccentric. And the kid is typically precocious. I mean, he's nice and likable, but man, the dialogue where he's at school and he's like picked on by bullies and he has his best friend stick up for him. Oh my god, that dialogue, it feels so hollow to the point where I started questioning, wait, did an adult do ADR on some of these scenes? Because this does not feel the way that kids talk. Then again, there are a lot of scenes where you think, like, I don't really believe that people would talk like this. So yeah, basically it's building up Oak so that, you know, he can have a better life. To basically, like, you know, play with the band. But there's some very strange routes that they take within this scenario. Like we don't, like, for instance, like, Oak's mother, it's such a tragedy, and yet it doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot to her character, other than just her being, you know, just than her having this problem of addiction. And worse, the one thing I really hated about this film more than anything was the third act and how it tries to like excuse away certain things to get it to the next scene. Like, for instance, at one point Oak's mother dies, and you know, they have like the very tragic funeral and they're trying to figure out what to do with Oak. But then they mention that, oh well, she had like a medical issue that she hid from everyone. It's like that kind of like removes like an extra element there of of tragedy. And probably the worst thing that I hated about the third act is that Oak is taken in by his grandparents, who live in Minnesota, and the only thing they bring is like, oh, it snows in Minnesota, and we have a big mall there. Isn't that great? Yeah, the Minnesotan in me is cringing at watching that. But the thing is, Oak's grandparents, they seem pretty nice. They're really nice, and yet Oak feels the need that once he's taken in by them, that he has to escape them somehow. And I understand why he has to escape his grandparents, because he wants to get back with the band, because he feels like the band has been more his family than anyone else. And that would feel like, these grandparents are very understanding. Like they even give the band members time to say goodbye to Oak. They're very gentle with him. They try to be as nurturing as they can. I mean, the only thing that it seems like they're really terrible at is that they won't let the kid drink coffee, and they give him milk instead. So I guess that's enough to deceive them, because in order to get back to the band, Oak has to deceive them by forging a letter, by saying that it was his single mother's wish that Oak be with the band. And it's like, why would you have to forge it? These grandparents seem very well understanding that it feels like it would be the perfect opportunity to have a great sentimental moment where Oak sits down with them and says, look, it was really hard. I tried to stick up, for my mom, but I really felt like a sense of connection and love with this band, and I really miss them, and I want to be with them. Because I could totally see these grandparents saying, okay, definitely, if this is what makes you happy, and we want you to have a great life, sure, we'll get you back to the with the band. Why do we have to go through this? Why do we have to go around the block just to get straight across the street here to this next part of the story? This is almost like watching like a Lifetime TV movie about reincarnation and redemption. That just it doesn't work. So many of these scenes have just the most hollow emotion and dialogue that is forced through as hard as it can. I mean, I guess like the only positive thing I could say about this film is that the rock music sequences, they're not bad. They're I enjoyed seeing the kid in these and in some of these performances. But again, like so much of this is there are so many good scenes within this film that just crash and burn in some way. Either because the actors are not that great, but I mean that might be attributed to like a lot of the dialogue, which is super, super bad in this type of film. Which, I mean, it's Sean McNamara. This is the guy who did Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain or whatever it was called. So I kind of expected that. But then there are so many scenes where little triumphs feel bereft of carrying some extra emotion. Like at one point, Gina is so excited because after the first performance they do with Oak, that is recorded. Which, by the way, the way that they record it too, and they post the video up on YouTube, it's shot from multiple angles. So it's like, how many cameras did you have that were recording this at the same time that you edited it together? But whatever. But apparently she says like, oh, look at this, we got 20,000 views, or it's like 200,000 views or whatever. Look, we're blowing up. But then they reveal that apparently she bought those views too. So it feels like so many great scenes here are dashed away by something, either within the writing, or within the direction, just something. There's so many moments here where it didn't have to be about deceiving grandparents or reincarnation, which, by the way, we keep flashing back to the car crash multiple times just so that we can connect all the dots here. It's like, oh man, maybe Vaughn is the maybe Oak is the reincarnation of Vaughn, and maybe Vaughn's spirit can live on. It thankfully never goes fully off the cliff by actually, showcasing like Vaughn, remembering his past life or something stupid like that, which I would not put this film past doing. It pulls a lot of ridiculous stuff out of its butt to make this type of melodrama work. And wow, it is just such a baffling film that it takes so many of these bizarre routes and just falls flat on its face scene after scene. It does not work. It has its heart in the right place, I think, but it's certainly not up on screen. So for Mighty Oak, 1 out of 5 stars.